welcome Kathleen Gage, the founder of Vegan Visibility, an integrative marketing consulting firm dedicated to promoting healthy living, compassion for animals, and kindness to the planet. And Kathleen is a committed ethical vegan, makes her an invaluable resource for us in exploring a plant-based vegan lifestyle and discover the countless benefits that Kathleen's going to share with us today. Kathleen, welcome. Welcome to
Thank you.
Plant-Based Curious. I'm just so happy that you're here sharing with us
Well,
today.
and I'm happy to be here. Anything to do with plant-based, and I love the title Plant-Based Curious because a lot of people are, and they're just not sure where to get the information. So we can dial it in and I can share what I know. I've been plant-based and I identify also as vegan for nearly 5 years now.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
And that's what I really wanted to do, was to create a safe space and a community for people that are curious. So many people want to start plant-based living, or they don't understand what is vegan. I've reached out to you because I know you are a ethical vegan,
Yes.
and I wanted you to come on and share your story about your journey to being an ethical
Happy
vegan.
to do so. And actually, just kind of as a point of reference, the term vegan actually was coined, I believe it was around 1944, 1945, and it was an offshoot of vegetarian. And there's a lot of confusion as to what a vegan actually is. According to the old terminology and definition, it's somebody that does as little harm to animals as possible, meaning that we don't consume animals. Now, a lot of people today, they say, I'm going on that vegan diet. And the old time vegans, they get really upset about that. It's like, oh, don't get upset, just educate. And so
Yes.
there's plant-based eating, which is more about what we consume as far as nutrition. There's veganism, which is about kindness to the animals, the planet, and to your health, because the less animal product you put into your body, the healthier you're going to be. As long as you're not consuming, and this is a whole nother discussion, the processed vegan foods. You can be a very unhealthy vegan, but if you're plant exclusive, and I actually work with the National Health Association, which is the longest running organization in the United States, possibly in the world, that promotes an exclusively plant-based lifestyle and diet. So, there's so many factions and it can confuse people, and people can say, "Ooh, that's way too much." Bottom line is just don't eat animals. It's real simple. Don't eat anything with a mother and a face. Just don't do it. Yeah. And eat as close to whole food as you possibly can with as little processing, and you'll be on your way to health.
I want you to share your story. I think stories are so important, where people can really resonate as to how we started our journey plant-based and vegan. We didn't just wake up one morning and we were plant-based and vegan.
Right. Yeah. Very few people go through that kind of a transition. I do know a few people who have been vegan all their life, often, but for me, mine had to do with inflammation. I was 64 at the time, and I was dealing with a lot of inflammation. I was a runner and I had slow recovery times. I'm a very slow runner, but I just ached a lot and I didn't feel good. And so I started doing research, and I came across Dr. Furman's book, Eat to Live. I read that, started watching documentaries, started reading all about plant-based eating more than I did about being a vegan. And from everything I read, I felt like if I gave it 7 days and gave up all animal and dairy, and I was quite a carnivore, I ate a lot of cheese. I was, like many people, addicted to cheese because cheese
Right.
is addictive. So I thought I'll give it 7 days and see what happens. And by that point, I had given up on diets. I was about 40 pounds heavier than I am now. And I just, I gave up on it because they never worked. I would lose the weight, gain more back. But I thought, if it can get rid of the inflammation, that's what I want. Well, not only in 2 days did the inflammation go away, it has not come back. I started noticing that I wasn't getting daily headaches like I had been. I was sleeping better. I was feeling better. And this was in 7 days. And I dropped about 5 or 6 pounds. And I thought, let me try it for 7 more days. Had nothing to do with ethics around animals. It had nothing to do with the environment. It was all about me, which for most people, it is about us. So it really was actually in about month 6. I was still eating a very high plant-based diet and as close to nature as possible. No SOS, which means no added salt, oil, or sugar, and that's processed. And after 6 months, I was in the grocery store and walking by the meat department to go to another department, and I literally stopped in my tracks. And I don't know what happened, but I had what I refer to as a spiritual awakening around the pain and suffering that animals go through. And I could hear the screams, I could hear
Mhm.
the terror. And in that moment, I was like, I was crying and I was like, what's happening? You know, this is like a very strange experience in the grocery store. And what I realized was it was all those years of being a carnivore that had caught up with me. And I had enough clarity in that 6 months to realize that I could never consume animals again. And it was in that moment I identified as a vegan. I never dreamed I would have that kind of experience. And once you do, there's no going back. And it's kind of like somebody who has problems with drinking. I've been in recovery for 39 years, and I tried and tried and tried, and all these things, got into a lot of trouble in my 20s. And when I finally hit that place of I can never take a drink again, I mean, I just knew it to my very core. Did it mean it was going to be easy? No. There are challenges as vegans we deal with. There are challenges in any kind of a situation where really carnivores are addicted to certain types of foods, and the food manufacturers assure that we will get addicted. You look at the number of advertisings we're exposed to, not only of food, but of medication. It's like, oh, take this pill to fix the problem, that truly a different diet oftentimes could fix that.
Once you take control of your food as well as your health, you become an advocate for yourself.
Mhm.
One thing leads to another. So if you're being mindful now, that means you're awake, you're conscious of what you're eating. Just because you don't know what to do, it doesn't mean that you're unconscious. Because if you're listening, oh, and that's a start.
Absolutely. It takes is one little opening, and it's a consideration, and one thing could lead to the next, to the next. And what I love about what happened during the pandemic with all the shutdowns, more and more people were exposed to the plant-based and vegan way of life. And there's no denying a lot of what goes on now. Before the shutdowns, a lot of people didn't really know what went on in factory farms, but you don't have to look too far to really get the truth. And the documentaries are really important, like Dominion is a good one, What the Health, Game Changers. It just depends on your reason for choosing to try a different way of life. And I have a very dear friend that he was willing to lose his feet and his sight over giving up milk and over giving up animal products. And I'm like, really? And with somebody like that, doesn't matter what argument you have for them, what proof you have for them, they're stuck in whatever they're stuck in, and God bless them. And I said, you know what, if that's what you want to do, God bless you. I really hope you don't suffer too much. And I mean, it's really crazy when you look at what people do to themselves, even when they're given the answer and they go, oh, that's too hard. And to me, it's harder to lose my feet due to diabetes, or it's harder to have a heart attack and have open heart surgery, or have a stroke, or whatever it may be. It's much easier to live on the straight and narrow and to know that I'm doing good for the animals.
It's much easier, but it's more of a consciousness
Mhm.
that we have to become aware. and
Absolutely.
and becoming aware for anyone that's listening is just taking one step, something you hear today, and just trying it. So you talked about Dr. Furman's book,
Mhm.
Kathleen. Just getting that book and starting to read about what you can do. It's one step at a time. It's the small things that lead to the big
Absolutely. I recently read a
advantages.
book called Eternal Treblinka, I think it is. And Treblinka was one of the concentration camps during the war. And the person who wrote it, his family, most of them perished in the camps. And he said there's a direct link for how we treat animals to how we treat people. And the slaughtering and the Holocaust of the animals is that leads us into the Holocaust of people. And you can look around the world and see it happening. So early on, if I would have read that book, I would not have been able to handle it. It was probably one of the most difficult books for me to read. And I read the whole thing. And I
Wow.
actually reached out to some of the people that are now in their 90s who were featured in the book, that were actually in different camps that had been set up for the extermination. And so when you look at it at the level of consciousness, you mentioned, being more aware, you really are. And it's like you have more empathy for what other people go through, what animals go through. And I think in general, people who do give up or choose to let go of the desire and the need to eat any kind of animal products, I think we have more empathy on so many different levels, just more embracing and more accepting.
But it's about practicing, isn't it? And working that muscle.
Hmm.
I mean, it's like one piece of meat at a time, one animal at a time, one meal at a time, one
Absolutely.
meal at a time, because just missing one meal could save some animal's life.
You're so correct, I am, with that, because it's like it doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. It's just like in recovery. They say, don't quit drinking for the rest of your life, just for today, just for that next drink. It's the same with just for that next chicken wing or that next steak. And the cute little names that we give to animals that are on our plate, it's like, call them what they are and then
Right.
go from there. But what really helps is to surround yourself with other people who live an ethical, plant-based, vegan lifestyle, to read the books, because I'm such a advocate of reading and watching the documentaries, following the blogs, podcast shows like yours. What better than, oh, I'm plant curious, so it's like, let's go ahead and find out what they have to say and consider something. You don't have to necessarily adopt it right away, but at least consider it.
One small step or action,
Hmm.
just a book, just start by reading, start by just choosing one thing to do, because
What,
one thing leads to another.
let me ask you, what is your
Mhm.
favorite book? What, out of all the books that you've read or the documentaries that you've seen, which have been your favorite?
Well, I would say, even though it was so hard for me, Dominion was the most
Yes.
mind
Yes.
blowing documentary. When people say, my niece said one day, Auntie, I would like to become vegan.
Hmm.
I said, watch this documentary called Dominion. And she came back and said, I just couldn't do it. But you know what I loved about Dominion? And it wasn't filmed in the United States, because everybody that was that uh, I love that they also included dogs,
Hmm. Hmm.
to show that the animals we eat, it really depends on where you live around the world.
Absolutely.
And when you see that, it really kind of makes you stand up and go, oh my God. Like I tell my friends, when I see a cow, when I see a pig, it's no different. I can't eat it. I said, it's no different than you looking at your dog or your cat. And they go, whoa,
You're so spot on.
whoa.
You are so spot on with that. And I think about my own dog. She had to go in for dental work the other day. And she's a rescue. I have my $1 million dogs, and they're all rescues. And she has a severe heart murmur. She has heart. And what are you going to do? You're going to take care of them. And
Yeah.
so we had to get the ultrasound before we decided to do the dental work. And it was kind of sixes on that. And I looked at how much I invested in her health. And she was very upset with me for leaving her at the vet's office to have that dental work. And now she's forgiven me. But we have to have her on heart medication. We have to feed her a special diet. And for people who really want to go to the next level of feeding your dogs vegan dog food, that actually has been proven to be healthy for dogs. People say no, dogs
Oh,
aren't carnivores.
okay. Okay.
My dear friend Linda Middlesworth is the co-founder of VDog, and they were rated the highest rated vegan dog food. And I've talked to people who have put their dogs on VDog, and they say, it's amazing. My dog lost weight, needed to. My dog has more energy. So for me, it's like I look at the investments I make in my pets, and it's like, why would I not give up meat. Why would I not? Because I love animals so much. And, so I think that when people say, well, what can I really do? Each person does count. Every action does count. It's like the outworn story about the starfish. You throw the starfish into the ocean, and the old man says to the kid, well, it doesn't make that much difference. And the kid goes, well, to that one starfish, it does. It's
Yeah.
like to that one cow, to that one sheep who would not even be in existence had they not been forced into existence. That's another thing people don't look at. It's like these animals didn't ask to be born. They don't ask for the pain and suffering, and they don't ask to be slaughtered. And we call it humane killing. Well, let's call what it is what
What
it
it
really
is.
is. They are being
Exactly.
slaughtered.
That they are being slaughtered.
Mhm.
You are exactly correct. There's so many smoke screens around marketing,
Mhm.
and that's another thing that makes it so hard. For people to really, if people knew about factory farms, even how their food, their meats are being processed, they would not eat meat
No, they
the
would not.
way they would not eat it. So there's a massive effort to keep things secret,
Well,
to
you know what
keep
it is,
things
Diane?
down.
It's called money.
Oh
Money,
yeah,
money,
yeah,
money.
yeah, definitely.
People,
But
profits over people. Yeah.
my intention is hopefully this is another platform for people to do their own research, to explore, to really understand what is behind the food that you eat. That's all I'm
Absolutely.
asking people to do is look at the ingredients, read, do your research to really understand what you are really eating
I love
and
that.
how
I
it's
love that.
processed.
Absolutely. Have you read the book by Dr. Will Tuttle, The World Peace Diet?
Yes, and I saw Dr. Tuttle a few years ago. He came and did a talk at this vegan group I used to belong
Okay.
to.
Okay.
I used to belong to a vegan meetup, and all these authors would come to
Hmm.
Chicago, and I really enjoyed him. He is, I mean, there's so many awesome, awesome people
Yes.
that you.
Yes.
So, who, if people are listening and they're interested in buying a book or just starting something tomorrow, Kathleen, what advice would you give them?
Well, I thank you for asking that. The first thing I always advise to people is to look at why you are even considering doing this. If it's for health reasons, I definitely would recommend Eat to Live by Dr. Joel Fuhrman. Phenomenal book. Dr. Greger's works, How Not to Die and How Not to Diet, also very, very good. So on the health side of things, those are two that I recommend. Also, Dr. Esselstyn, who's all
Mm-hmm,
about heart disease. And then there's Dr. McDougall, who's about
mm-hmm.
diabetes. So you can really drill down to have specific answers. But as far as like the ethics around it, the documentary Dominion is definitely one to watch. What the Health kind of covers a lot
What
of
the
that.
health covers a
So,
lot. Yes,
but
it
I would
does.
recommend starting with Eat to Live because that'll give you kind of a perspective of what you're putting in your body is not good
Yes,
for you in most cases.
yes.
And another one is Salt, Sugar, Fat by Michael
Hmm.
Moss.
I have that.
Phenomenal,
Yes.
phenomenal, phenomenal.
I read that.
You better be able to pick your chin off the ground when you're reading it because honest to goodness, I was going, oh my gosh, we have been lied to by the food manufacturers, by the advertisers, by the big pharma. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, it blows your mind. And then people go, oh, that's conspiracy theory. It's like, no, it's actually been very, very strategically set in place. And we have to step out. And now what I love is there's a lot of plant-based doctors that are stepping forward and they're saying, okay, I want to work with my patients on the level of really healing them, not just putting a
Yes.
band-aid over things.
Yes.
So, and that's where
Yes.
organizations like the National Health Association comes in. They've got every luminary you can think of as a member. They
Mm.
do an
Oh,
annual
wow.
conference. I mean, there's a lot available for people today compared to, let's say, 10, 20, 30 years
Oh
ago.
my goodness. 20 years ago, it was tough. But that's why I
Mhm.
tell people don't believe me. Don't listen to me. Take what you want, do your research, just really understand and explore what it means to be
Absolutely.
plant-based.
Absolutely. And, you know, I have a year to go before I'm going to be 70, and I look at my health compared to a lot
Oh,
of people. Yeah. And I'm going, well, how did that happen? Well, a
you
day at a
look
time, we
good.
got over
I
it.
know. I
Exactly.
know.
But a lot of it has to do with the way that I do eat and my awareness around what I put in my body. Here a simple tip for people. I'm sure a lot of your listeners and viewers are believe in the power of prayer. I pray over my food. I actually pray, and thank God for the food that's going to nourish my body to do the work I'm here to do. Level. So I do believe prayer is a powerful tool. And if you can pray over your meal and you see that your meal is just beautiful, beautiful colors of the rainbow, you're going to nourish your body at a much deeper level and your spirit. You know,
It's becoming more aware, more intentional. More
absolutely.
intentional means you're paying attention. I know we've been trained and conditioned to do things fast and not pay attention, but what I'm advocating is that you guys just pay attention. I mean,
Hmm.
that is a big step right there to what
Absolutely.
you're eating if you start paying attention. Kathleen, what is one thing you could say to someone who's still they're curious, but I don't know if this is something I really want. What do you think would get them off the fence? Just one last
One thing
word.
is just give it a shot for 7 days. Just try it for 7 days and really, you know, get the book Eat to Live, read it, and then give it 100% for 7 days, and you will be amazed. However, if you do have certain conditions that you're taking medication for, let your doctor know and find a plant based doctor. Because if, let's say, you're type 2 diabetes and you have to take a certain amount of insulin, you can reverse diabetes. There are plenty of people who have done it. There's doctors who talk about it, experts, but you want to make sure that your doctor knows what you're doing, because if they have to reduce your medication, that's really important for them to be partnered with you.
And one thing I want to say about that is because over the years I had run into that a couple of times is when I tell a doctor that I was plant based, then they tell me how I need to drink milk, I need to eat yogurt, I need to eat meat for my protein. So it's hearing that, but also knowing that I'm going to learn about another source,
Right. Right.
another non-animal source, because I can tell you that the doctor will say you can't do that. A lot
You
of
know,
them will.
plenty of them
A
will,
lot of them will.
and what I love
Mhm.
about how the awareness is rising is there
Mhm.
are now doctors who, they have directories. I think it's Vegan Doctor or
Oh, okay.
plantbaseddoctor.com. You can go there
Okay.
and put in your zip code, and you can find doctors and physician assistants in your area who they will support you being on a plant-based diet.
Well, that is so good. So, what's the last thing you'd like to leave us with, Kathleen?
You know, what I'd really like to leave people with is really embrace today and be present in today, because, you know, we all hear that one day it's all going to be over. And it is. I recently lost my mother in law, who I was
Yeah.
very, very close to. I've known her for 33 years. And so it's been a huge loss. And yet I have no regrets in the way that we completed our relationship, because she lived on our property. So every day I was able to spend time with her, give her those hugs. But I think more than anything, live consciously and live in an awareness of you do make a difference. No matter how insignificant you might feel, do something to serve others. And when you serve others, you feel significant.
That is so beautiful. And I want to thank you for being here today and sharing your story.